Good day everyone, especially to you Ma'am Hannah. We are the Group 8 and we are assigned to tackle about the nervous system. So here are objectives about this topic. First, know the parts and functions of the central nervous system or the CNS and peripheral nervous system or PNS. Second, understand the structure and role of neurons. Third, explain resting potential, action potential, and ion channels. Fourth, describe how synapses and neurotransmitters work. Fifth, identify reflex arcs and simple neuronal pathways. And the last, relate the nervous system to the body responses and actions. And why is it important to study nervous system? Yes, it is important to study the nervous system because it is the control center of the body. And from now on, let me explain first what is nervous system. So, what is nervous system? Yes, the nervous system is the body's command and communication network made up of the brain, spinal cord, nerves, which transmit electrical and chemical signals to control and coordinate bodily functions, thoughts, and feelings. So, there are 5 functions of nervous system. First, receiving sensory input detects both external and internal stimuli, some consciously like touch and vision, and others subconsciously like blood pH and pressure. Second one, integrating information. The brain and spinal cord process input, leading to immediate responses, memory storage, or ignoring it. Third, controlling muscles and glands. It is ability to regulate skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles as well as the gland activity. Fourth one, maintaining homeostasis. Helps keep the blood's internal environment stable by detecting and responding to changes. And the last one, the last function of nervous system is, it is the mental activity responsible for consciousness, memory, and thinking. And now on, let's proceed to the 2 divisions of nervous system. So, in nervous system there are 2 divisions, which is central nervous system or CNS and peripheral nervous system or PNS. But first, let me explain first the central nervous system. Central nervous system or CNS, it consists of brain and spinal cord. So, its main function is to process information, store it, coordinate responses. It acts as the body's control center. And the peripheral nervous system or PNS, made up of nerves and ganglia outside the central nervous system. Its function is to connect the CNS to the rest of the body, carrying sensory information to the CNS and sending motor commands from the CNS to muscle and glands. So there are 2 main divisions of PNS, which is sensory or afferent division and motor afferent division. So sensory afferent division, it is the ability to bring signals to the central nervous system, while in the other hand, motor or afferent division, it sends signals to the CNS. So there are 2 parts of motor division, which is somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system, which consists of parasympathetic and sympathetic. So here is the example of actions made by CNS and PNS. So, you are in a snow area. When you see a view, the sensory division carries the information to the brain and spinal cord, or which is the central nervous system. So, the central nervous system processes it and sends signals through the motor divisions to control muscles and body responses. The somatic system makes you run, while the autonomic system speeds up your heartbeat and later calms you down. So let's proceed to the neurons of nervous system. So there are 2 types of cells, which is the neurons or what we call nerve cells and the glial cells or what we call neurologia. So what is neurons? Yes, neurons is specialized to receive stimuli, conduct action potentials, and transmit signals. Yes. So there are 3 parts of neurons. The first one is cell body. Cell body contains nucleus, rough ER, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, and cytoskeletal structures for organization. And the second parts of neurons is the dendrites. So what is dendrites? Dendrites, short branch extensions that receive information from other neurons or sensory receptors and transmit it toward the cell body. And the last part of neurons is what we call axon. So what is axon? Axon is a single long process that carries action potentials away from the cell body. So there are three types of neurons in nervous system. First one is multipolar neurons. It is many dendrites and one axon, found in the CNS and motor neurons. Second one is the bipolar neurons, one dendrite and one axon, found in sensory organs like the eye and nasal cavity. The last one is pseudo-unipolar neurons. It is a single process that splits into two branches, acting as one axon, carries sensory input from the body to the CNS. The first part of the picture is the multipolar neuron. The second part of the picture, as you can see below our slides, is the bipolar neurons. And the last one, the third part of the picture in the bottom of our slides, is the pseudo-unipolar neurons. And now, let's proceed to the glial cells. So, what comes in your mind when you hear the word glial cells? So, let me explain it. Glial cells, or what we call neurologia, are supportive cells in the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system that outnumber neurons and can divide. So, there are 5 main types of the glial cells or neurologia. The first one is the astrocytes. The functions of astrocytes is to support, form blood-brain barrier, aid repair. Second types of glial cells is the ependymal cells. So what is ependymal cells? It is ability to produce and move cerebrospinal fluid. The third one is microglia. The function of these types of glial cells is to immune defense and remove debris. The fourth one is oligodendrocytes in the CNS, and the last one is Schwann cells in the PNS. It forms myelin sheets around the axons. The upper left picture shows the astrocytes, the green one is the ependymal, the blue one is the microglial, and the two pictures in the bottom is the oligodendrocytes and Schwann cells. And now, let's proceed to myelin sheets. So, what is myelin sheets? Myelin sheets is insulating layers around axons. It is also formed by oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system and Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system. Nodes of Ranvier. It is the gaps that allow ion movement and speed up signal transmission. So there are two types of myelin sheet, which is the myelinated axons and unmyelinated axons. First, myelinated axons. It conducts signals quickly and efficiently. While on the other hand, unmyelinated axons, it is lack of sheets, slower transmissions, but more common in small nerves. So, as you can see in the picture A shows the myelinated axons. It is a form of myelinated axons, while in the picture B shows the pictures of unmyelinated axons. And from now on, let's proceed to the electrical signals and neural pathways. So, what is resting membrane potential? Resting membrane potential, it is the foundation for nerve communication. It is consists of two ions that pump, which is the potassium or A+, and sodium or the Na+. The movement of these ions allows signals, reflexes, and muscle activity. So in the cell properties, inside the cell is the negative charge, while in the outside of the cell is the positive charge. Resting membrane happens when, number 1, more potassium inside the cell, and number 2, more sodium outside the cell. And the last, membrane is more permeable to the potassium than sodium. The sodium-potassium pump or the Na plus negative K plus pump is required to maintain the greater concentration of the potassium or the Na plus outside the cell membrane and the K plus or the sodium inside. The two ions move through ion channels. First, leak channels or what we call, or that is called always open. Second is the gated channels or the closed and it open with signals. At rest, the potential is maintained mainly by ions diffusing through leak channels. Let's proceed to action potential. An action potential occurs when the charge across the cell membrane is briefly reversed. The two ion channels generate the action potential. The muscle and nerve cells are excitable cells, meaning that the resting membrane potentially charged in response to stimuli that activate gated ion channels. Depolarization. The sodium influx makes inside the positive creates local potential. Repolarization. The sodium channel close while the potassium channels open and the potassium exits, restoring resting membrane. Hyperpolarization. Membrane briefly more negative than resting potential due to the extra potassium leaving. Let's proceed to the synapse. So what is synapse? Synapse is a junction where the axon of one neuron communicates with another neuron, muscle gland, or gland. So there are three parts of synapse, which is presynaptic terminal, the end of the axon that releases neurotransmitters. Second one is synaptic cleft, the tiny gap between neurons where neurotransmitters travel. The last part of synapse is postsynaptic membrane, the receiving surface of the next neuron, muscle, or gland with receptors. And let's proceed to reflexes. So what is reflexes? Reflexes is a involuntary and quick response to a stimulus processed without conscious thought. It occurs through a reflex arc, the simplest functional unit of the nervous system. So there are 5 parts of reflexes, which is number 1, sensory receptor. Second one is sensory neuron. Third one is interneuron, sometimes present. Fourth one is the motor neuron. And the fifth one is effector organ or the muscle or gland. And now, let's proceed to neuronal pathways. So what is neuronal pathways? Yes, neuronal pathways are the roots nerve impulses follow as they travel through the nervous system. It is made up of interconnected neurons that transmit signals from one area to another area. So there are 2 types of neuronal pathway. The first is the converging pathway. Converging pathway is many neurons send signals to one neuron. Example of this is the vision from both eyes. The second types of neuronal pathway is the diverging pathway. One neuron sends signals to many neurons. Example, the muscle contraction. And from now on, let's proceed to my last part, which is the central and peripheral nervous system. So, as what I discussed earlier, there are 2 types of nervous system. First one is the central nervous system or the CNS, which consists of brain, spinal cord, and its main function is to process information, store it, and coordinate responses. While on the other hand, peripheral nervous system or the PNS, made up of nerves and ganglia outside the CNS. So its function is to connect the CNS to the rest of the body. Peripheral nervous system are divided into 12 cranial nerves and 31 spinal nerves. Yes. Thank you for listening, guys, and I will give the next slides to my co-reporter. Once again, thank you and good day.
So now let's proceed to the spinal cord. The spinal cord is not just a long thin tube-like bundle of nerves or a cable. It is a vital pathway for sensory information to ascend to the brain and motor commands to descend to the muscles. It also controls rapid involuntary responses known as reflexes. So the question is, does the spinal cord send message to the brain or does the brain send message to the spinal cord? The spinal cord is a two-way street of information with different pathway for messages traveling in each direction, to the brain and from the brain. So now, let's talk about the cross-section of the spinal cord. Firstly, we have the white matter. The white matter is on the outside surrounding the central gray matter. It's primarily made up of bundles of axons that are coated in a fatty substance called myelin. And then we have the gray matter. The gray matter is on the inside and is shaped like an H or a butterfly when you look at the cross-section. It's mainly made up of neuron cell bodies, dendrites, and uncoated axons. If you look at it here in this slide, you can see the white matter surrounding the gray matter that looks like a butterfly or an H. So now let's proceed to converging and diverging pathway in the spinal cord. So the spinal cord uses converging pathway or many-to-one to integrate diverse information and make a decision, and diverging pathway or one-to-many to amplify and execute the decision across the body. These two fundamental circuits are the basis of all complex nervous system activity. Now, let's talk about spinal reflex, the knee-jerk and withdrawal. Reflex is the body's automatic, rapid, and involuntary response to stimuli. The knee-jerk reflex is a classic example of a stretch reflex. When the patellar tendon is tapped, stretch receptors in the quadricep muscle are activated. The sensory input immediately synapses with a motor neuron in the spinal cord, causing the muscle to contract and the leg to extend. It's a monosynaptic reflex, meaning it involves only one synapse between the sensory and the motor neuron. The withdrawal reflex. It is a protective reflex. If you touch something painful, pain receptors are stimulated. The sensory neuron synapse with interneurons in the spinal cord, which in turn active motor neurons to cause the quick flexion of the limb away from the source of pain. This is a polysynaptic reflex. And then we have spinal nerves. Spinal nerves are cables that connects your spinal cord to the rest of your body, allowing for communication between your brain and periphery. So there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves, named according to the vertebral region they emerge from: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal. Each nerve is mixed nerve, carrying both sensory and motor axons. Then, the axon of several spinal nerves often join together to form a network called a plexus, before splitting off again to supply the limbs. Key plexus includes the brachial plexus for the upper limbs and the lumbosacral plexus for the lower limbs. Finally, let's briefly look at the brain, the most complex part of the CNS. We can divide it into four major parts: the brainstem, the cerebellum, the diencephalon, and the cerebellum. The brainstem, that includes the midbrain, pons, and the medulla oblongata, connects the spinal cord to the rest of the brain. The medulla oblongata is critical as it contains centers that regulates basic life-sustaining functions like heart rate and breathing. The diencephalon includes the thalamus, which is the major relay station for sensory input, and the hypothalamus, which controls things like body temperature and hunger. The cerebellum is crucial for coordinating skill, movement, and regulating posture. The cerebrum is the largest part responsible for higher level functions like thoughts, language, and voluntary movement. Its surface is characterized by folds called gyri and the grooves called sulci. It is divided into lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital, each with specific function. So now let's talk about motor and sensory areas of the cerebral cortex. Within the lobes are functional areas. The primary motor area in the frontal lobe controls voluntarily muscles movement, while the primary somatic sensory area in the parietal lobe receives signals for touch, pain, and temperature. And we have here the ascending tracts, function as the sensory highway of the central nervous system, delivering actions potential originating from various sensory receptors like those for touch, pain, and position, up through the spinal cord to the brain. The ascending tracts transmit action potential that originates in the brain motor center, primarily the cerebral cortex and brainstem, the appropriate levels of the spinal cords. They must regulate everything from precise finger movements to muscle tone and balance. So now let's proceed to brainwaves and consciousness. So brain activity can be measured using an EEG or electroencephalograph, which reveals distinct electrical pattern or brain waves like alpha, beta, theta, and delta that correspond to different state of consciousness. First, we have alpha with a moderate frequency and beta with low amplitude and high frequency. Third is theta with a low frequency and higher amplitude, and lastly with delta with a highest amplitude and lowest frequency.
Good day everyone, I am Ferdinand Marias, and today we're exploring a very fascinating topic. It's all about our memory. Memory is how our brain processes, stores, and later retrieves information. Psychologists often break it down into three main stages based on how long the information lasts. Think of your brain like a high-tech filing cabinet with different drawers for different needs. First, let's talk about working memory. This is the shortest and most active type of memory. It's not just storage, it's where you actively hold and manipulate information needed for immediate tasks. Think of it as your brain's mental scratchpad or desktop. It's very limited in both capacity and duration. So, ang best example aning working memory is kanang mag-memorize without tawag new phone number or mag-dial tag new phone number. Diba? Always nato na siyang repeat sa ato ang mind in order na ma-memorize nato na ang number. And after ana, kung manatod daya, kung dili nato i-save or i-phone book, mga pila ka seconds or minutes, malimtan dayo nato na because temporary lang na siya sa ato ang memory. Ano siyang ginatawag natong working memory. kay mao lang siya shortest and most active type sa tuang memory. So now let's move on to the second type of memory, or the STM, short for short-term memory. So STM holds information for a slightly longer period, typically from 15 to 30 seconds up to a few minutes, unless you actively try to keep it there or always nimo siyang gina-repeat. The information is very fragile and can be easily lost due to distraction or trauma, which is often causes memory loss for events right before an injury. So, ang best example ani is kanang naka-try na mo anang namoy gina-memorize din. Na-remember na ninyo yung gina-memorize na di-distract mo or samok-samok mo. Then after ana is limita na ninyo yung gi-memorize. Mao na siya ang we call na STM kay naga-hold lang siya og information in a short period. Now let's go to our third type of memory, the LTM or the long-term memory, or mo na itong ginatawag na permanent archive. So, LTM is the system for storing information for a potentially unlimited duration, from days to an entire life. This stability is achieved through a critical process na atong ginatawag og consolidation. So, what is consolidation? Consolidation is the slow dynamic process where memories are reorganized and move from the initial encoding areas like our hippocampus to more permanent storage site throughout the brain neocortex. So we have the two types of long-term memory, which are the declarative memory and the procedural memory. So kaning declarative memory is ano atong always ma-remember, like our birthday, our names, and even ato ang mga gusto. Then kaning procedural memory is our skills and mga habit, like for example, kabalo ka mo bike. If kabalo ka mo bike, kung makakita kag bike, like automatic na siya sa imuhang self. Di na yung wala malimtan. So trivia lang, the process of consolidation is believed to be significantly boosted during sleep, which is why getting good sleep after learning is so very important for long-term retention. So from moment-to-moment calculation of working memory through the brief storage of our short-term memory and ultimately to the lasting files of long-term memory, our memory system is a complex, dynamic, and essential part of who we are. So now let's move on. Let's talk about the limbic system, the hidden part of your brain that's responsible for your deepest feelings, motivation, and your survival instinct. Think of it as the brain emotional command center. So there are two famous parts of the limbic system, the amygdala and the hippocampus. So your amygdala, it looks like an almond. It's the center for emotion, especially your fear and anger. It's your brain alarm bell. And your hippocampus, shaped like a seahorse, and it's crucial for forming a new long-term memories. The limbic system controls the intensity of your emotional response. The amygdala is constantly evaluating the emotional importance of the information coming in. So one of the best example ani kay imagine kanang kita meeting kanang amygdala nimo is ma-trigger na siya, makatay na siya o kanang immediate fear response. And the same time sad, the imong amygdala is right next to the hippocampus. So pinaagi sa imong strong emotion that will help cement for the memory of where you saw the snake, and by that kanang situation is always no ma-remember. That's why ma-avoid na nimo or ma-avoid nimo tong spot where you saw the snake. This is why the emotionally intense memories tend to stick better. So our limbic system has critical connection to other parts of our brain, like our olfaction or our sense of smell. Your sense of smell is uniquely wired directly to the limbic system by passing other brain regions. This is why smells are so powerful at triggering vivid memories and emotional responses. Like for example, tanang makasimot bitaw tao specific perfume, and that will remind us or remind you of someone. So now let's go to hypothalamus. The limbic system heavily influences the hypothalamus, which is the master of regulator for the things like hunger, thirst, body temperature, and sexual drive. So another trivia, kaya ang atong limbic system man ang nag-control sa tanang vital survival function. If madamage ang atong limbic system, it can lead into a big problem. For instance, kung madamage ang ato ang hypothalamus, it can lead us to extreme issues with our appetite or sexual behavior. While kung madamage ang ato ang amygdala, it can severely impair in person ability to recognize fear in others or feel fear themselves. Okay everyone, so let's remember that our limbic system is what makes us feel, remember, and survive. Okay, now, the meninges, a crucial topic when discussing the central nervous system. The meninges are the three layers of protective tissues that surround the brain and the spinal cord. They serve as our brain's primary defense, keeping anchored and caution. Example, you can think of the dura mater as the hard shell of a helmet. It provides a rigid boundary and the main structural defense against the external impact. And trivia, the pain of the headaches often originate in the dura mater because it's the only one of the three layers that is highly sensitive to pain. And next, we have the arachnoid mater, named because it's looked like a spider web. This is the middle layer. It's much thinner and more delicate than the dura mater. It doesn't cling to the brain like the innermost layer, but rather spans the space over the brain's fold. The name comes from the web-like filaments and extend down to the innermost layer. Subdural space. Right below the dura mater and above the arachnoid mater is the subdural space. This is a potential space that only becomes real if there is bleeding or a subdural hematoma, often resulting from trauma. A key area associated with the arachnoid mater is the subcranoid space. This vital space sits below the arachnoid mater and above the pia mater. The area is filled with cerebrospinal fluid or CSF. The CFS acts like observer, allowing the brain to float and preventing it from being damaged by hitting the inside of the skull during the sudden movement. Finally, we look at the pia mater, or the Latin word for tender mother. This is the innermost and the most delicate layer. It's extremely thin and clings tightly to the surface of the brain and spinal cord, following every contour of Geary and Sulci. It's filled with small blood vessel that supplies the brain tissues. Example, imagine covering the surface of a complicated piece of fruit, like a mango, with a layer of plastic cling wrap. The pia mater adheres that closely. So the meninges compose of the tough dura mater, the web-like arachnoid mater, and the delicate pia mater, along with the cushioning cerebrospinal fluid in the subarachnoid space, from an essential multi-layered system that keeps your brain protected, cushioned, and anchored. So now let's elaborate on the function of cerebrospinal fluid, or the CSF. CSF is a clear, colorless fluid that plays several vital roles in protecting and maintaining the health of your brain and spinal cord. CSF primarily performs three critical functions. First, we have the protection and cushioning, or the mechanical supports. The brain essentially floats in the CSF within the skull. Because the brain tissue is delicate and has a consistency similar to the soft gelatin, the CSF acts as a shock absorber. One of the examples is, without the CSF, a sudden movement like a quick turn of the head would cause the brain to slam against the inside of the skull, leading to injury. So now let's go to the second function, which is the waste removal and chemical stability. So CSF acts like a lymphatic system for the brain. It collects the metabolic waste products and excess substances from the brain tissues and drains them into the bloodstream. This constant exchange helps maintain a chemically stable environment necessary for normal brain function. Now, lastly, the nourishment and homeostasis. So it delivers essential nutrients and hormones to the brain cells, regulating the level of various substances in the central nervous system. This helps maintain homeostasis, a stable internal balance. So now let's go to the CSF circulation. First, we have the production. CSF is continuously produced by specialized capillary networks called the choroid plexus, are located primarily within the brain's four internal chambers, known as ventricles. So second, we have the circulation. It flows from the ventricles through the small channels and into the subchronoid space, or the area covered in the previous report. It constantly moves around the brain and spinal cords. So lastly, we have the reabsorption. The fluid is eventually absorbed back into the bloodstream through the specialized structure called the arachnoid villi within the large venous sinuses of the dura mater. Okay, now let's focus on the ventricles, the interconnected hollow spaces deep within the brain where CSF is produced, circulates, and performs its vital function. The ventricles are essentially a system of four fluid-filled chambers inside your brain. These spaces are lined with special tissues called the choroid plexus, which is responsible for producing the cerebrospinal fluid. There are two large lateral ventricles, one in each hemisphere, which drain into the single third ventricle, which then connects to the final fourth ventricle near the brainstem. So, a little trivia, the term ventricle comes from the Latin word ventriculus, meaning little belly or cavity. The circulation of CSF follows a precise one-way path that is crucial for brain health. Think of it as a water park ride for the fluid. First, it starts in the lateral ventricles, flows to the third ventricles, passes through the narrow cerebral aqueduct or a small channel to the fourth ventricle. From the fourth ventricle, it exits into the central canal of the spinal cord, or the most importantly, into the subarachnoid space surrounding the brain and the spinal cord. So in short, the ventricles are not just empty spaces, they are the core of the brain's life support system, relying on the continuous CSF flow to protect and sustain our central nervous system. So now, let's go to the cranial nerve. So the human body has 12 pairs of cranial nerves. These nerves originate directly from the brain, unlike the spinal nerves, which come from the spinal cord. So each cranial nerve has a specific function. Some control our senses, like vision, smell, and hearing, while others control muscles for movements, swallowing, and facial expression. So first, what is sensory nerves? So sensory nerves carry information to the brain and allow us to perceive the world around us. This includes the nerves number 1, 2, and number 8, which are responsible for smell, vision, hearing, and balance. So we also have motor nerves. These nerves transmit signals from the brain to control movement and gland activities. Nerves number 4, 6, 11, and 12 belong to this group, managing the eye, neck, shoulder, and tongue movement. And mixed nerves perform both sensory and motor function. The mixed group includes the nerves number 3, 5, 7, 9, and nerves number 10, which control our eye movement, facial sensation, taste, salivation, and vital internal organ function. Among these, a few stand out for their essential groups. The trigeminal nerve, or nerve number 5, is a mixed nerve that provides a facial sensation and enables chewing that lets you feel a toothache or chew food. And also, the facial nerve, or nerve number 7, controls the facial expression, taste from the front 2/3 of the tongue, and the production of tears and saliva. It what allows you to smile, frown, or taste a sour candy. The vagus nerve, or nerve number 10, is the longest of all, extending to the chest and abdomen, regulating the heart rate, breathing, and digestion. As the primary nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, it keeps many body functions running automatically, such as maintaining a steady heartbeat and digesting food. So in order to remember the 12 cranial nerves, we have the mnemonic, so as you can see, and also, fun fact, included the vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve, while the trochlear nerve has the longest intercranial course. So how the autonomic nervous system works. So the ANS operates through a two-neuron chain, the preganglionic neuron, which starts in the central nervous system, and the postganglionic neuron, which is connected to the target organs like the heart, stomach, or lungs. These neurons talk to each other and to the organs using the chemical messengers and called the neurotransmitters. The ANS primarily uses two main ones. So the main neurotransmitter are the acetylcholine, used mostly by the parasympathetic division for calming action, and the norepinephrine, used mainly by the sympathetic division for the alertness and activity. So the overall goal of the ANS is to maintain the homeostasis, keeping the body's internal environment stable, like maintaining the normal body temperature and heart rate. So we have the first type of ANS, the sympathetic division, or the flight or fight. This is the body as an accelerator pedal. It prepares us for emergencies, stress, or action. So when this is activated, your heart rate and blood pressure increase, pupils dilate to improve vision, and digestion slow down so energy can go to your muscles. Example, imagine you suddenly hear a car horn behind you. Your heart races, your body tenses, and you jump out of the way. That's the sympathetic system in action. And now let's go to the parasympathetic division, the rest and digest. This is the calming force, your body's brake pedal. It helps conserve energy and restore balance after stress. So when this will be activated, so your heart and blood pressure drop back to normal. Digestion resumes, helping you to process food. It promotes relaxation, urination, and recovery. So example of this is after the near miss with the car, you take a deep breath, your heartbeat slow, and you start to feel calm again. That's the parasympathetic system at work. Here's some quick facts about the ANS. Some organs like sweat glands and blood vessels are controlled only by the sympathetic system. The vagus nerve is the main nerve of the parasympathetic system, called the vagus because it wanders through the chest and abdomen, controlling the major organs. So now let's go to the enteric nervous system, or the ENS. So it's often called the second brain because it operates independently, controlling all the activities of the digestive tract. So the ENS is a vast network of 200 to 600 million neurons located in the walls of the stomach and intestines. It controls our motility, coordinating the muscular contractions, physically move food along the digestive tract. Second, the absorption, regulating the release of enzyme, acid, and hormones needed for that digestion. And third, we have the blood flow, controlling the local blood flow to help with the nutrient absorption. And we have the mesenteric plexus, controls the movements of the gut, and thus so we have the subcostal plexus, controls the secretion and senses the contents of the gut. Even if the brain is disconnected, the ENS can still manage digestion on its own. It's truly function like an independent brain of the gut. So the ENS communicates with the brain through the vagus nerve, a link known as the gut-brain axis. So interestingly, around 90% of the vagus nerve fibers send message from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. So
now let's go to the last topic, the effect of aging on the nervous system. As we age, our nervous system naturally slows down. Our sensory and motor decline, reflexes become slower, balance and coordination weaken due to nerve and muscle deterioration. And second, we have the cognitive change. Brain tissues shrinks and neurons decline, leading to memory loss and slower thinking. Third, we have sleep changes. Older adults experience lighter sleep and more frequent waking. And fourth, of course, we have the prevention. So regular physical and mental exercise help maintain brain function and slow aging effect. So these are the examples of common nervous system disorders.